Fala boa tarde from Portugal. Munson here with the Happy Homesteaders, the Get Out and Grow Fresh Air crew. Anna and John in Devon in the UK, and Lee, of course, just up the road from me. No, just down the road from me here in Portugal. Good evening. How's everyone doing? Anna, how are you?
Yeah, doing good, thank you. It's been busy last couple of weeks, being away 2 weekends in a row. So and then yes, working 3 days as of tomorrow. So yes, keeping busy, and yes, coming round from the weekend, now getting ready for the week mode now. So yeah,
tremendous.
good. Weather's good too.
Stuff. Marvelous. Okay, thank you, Anna. Good to have you here. And Anna, of course, is the it keeps an eye on the questions coming in, and we'll watch out for questions in our Facebook group during the week. The Happy Homesteaders Get Out and Grow there on Facebook, and we'll find the link for that and pop it in the chat today. So yeah, send any questions for Anna. She'll be looking out for them, and of course we'll be picking them up alongside all of us during the show tonight. John, how are you? Good to see you back.
Yeah. I'm okay now. I mean, I got COVID, so I wasn't. I mean, I was all right because I had the vaccine. I was fully jabbed and that, so I that obviously helped me a lot because I didn't end up really ill. I ended up not great, but it was just sort of not great. I've been iller, to be honest. But yeah, I think for me, yeah. But yeah, that's how it was, and I just keep doing these tests, and I tested positive again today. So hopefully, the next test that I do, I'll test negative.
Makes you glad it's on Zoom, doesn't it?
Fingers crossed and all that.
Yep. Yeah. Well, good to have you back, John. I'm glad you're feeling somewhat better. Does COVID make your hair grow thicker?
No, I think that's just not having a haircut.
Right, okay. All right. Well, Lee's got a new strimmer, I think. He might be able to help you out with that, but not until you're fully recovered. But great to see you.
I think I'm all right being a Brian May impersonator, to be honest.
All right, great stuff. Nice one, John. Lee, how are you?
Oh, fantastic. We're finally getting a bit of rain. So
yeah, is that why you're inside? You've really thrown me tonight, being in your domesticated environment.
Cold out there today. It's actually cold. I'm inside with a body warmer on. I'm going soft.
Oh, amazing. Okay, well, we've got a special guest tonight who's just joined us. Helen Moore is in the green room. Obviously, the green room on a gardening show, isn't it? It's the gardening Q&A every Monday evening at 6:15. Questions coming in from all around the world. Helen is a permaculturist, and we do love to have a permaculturist among us. Let's see who else is here from Belfast this evening. Good evening, all. Hoping to pick up tips on water conservation. Yes, I'm sure you will, from both Lee and Helen tonight, and the rest of us have done a bit of research as well. We have had 2/3 of the rainfall this winter in Northern Ireland. As in what, you've had more than you would, 2/3 of the whole year in one season, is that? How does gardening cope in Portugal? What does he mean?
They've only had 2/3 of the normal rainfall.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They're below the national average.
And it's a wet old place anyway, so he's wondering how on earth we cope here in a much warmer climate. We'll find out, Diga. We'll let you know. And we are. I mean, that's what prompted this water conservation episode, is the fact that most of Portugal, I think 95% is on extreme drought alert. So they're very worried, obviously, about the fire situation, as well as the effect that will have on growing this year. So hence our theme this evening. Good morning, fellow gardeners from the Oregonians loving Portugal, and from Baldilocks as well, who are enjoying a Pacific Daylight Time, PDT, I learned about this morning. So their clocks have sprung forward already. So it makes it harder for them to watch the morning show, but possibly a little better for the evening show like this. Boa tarde todos from Louise in central Portugal. So pleased that we have rain, albeit not enough yet. When is enough enough? How will we know that? Which would be one of my questions. We use olive containers, says the OLP, to collect water from the gutters off the garage and greenhouse. And I don't think they're talking about 5-litre containers there, are they? There are 50 or 55 gallon. We've two. We don't use water from the hose for our greenhouse. So there's a solution. We'll come back to that. We have, yes, Baldilocks, you're very welcome from the OLP on the time change there. And Base Orbit and Suara here, fantastic, are visiting these shores. Are in Portugal at the moment, and have sent us the most amazing video of their garden, which we will play. I had some streaming issues with it, and I might have to play it without the sound, which might come as a bit of a blow to you both. So I'm sorry about that, but we'll still get to see the lovely pictures from your garden. And of course, John, do you want to voice that? Your usual posting there?
Yes, once I, yeah, just, yeah. So if you have any questions that you forgot to let Anna know about, or if you have only just thought of one, let us know here in the comments.
Thank you, John. With you in just a moment, Helen. Just saying good evening to everybody. Helen, of course, waiting for us in Devon in the UK, where Anna and John are. Jason's here. Look, good evening, Fresh Air team. And I think you saw him recently, didn't you? It was a bit of a man cave get together. And I guess you two were talking about your gardening implements together, comparing tools and that sort of thing.
He came over and did a bit of work with me. Gave me a bit of help on Friday. So
very good.
He was down Thursday night, and then we worked Friday, Saturday morning, then had a man cave after Saturday.
Is he a good boss, Jason? You can answer that privately if you prefer. Hey, boa tarde, todos. Pedro Gomes is here as well. That's fantastic. And in Mexico, from Mexico, Eric Huiza. Today, we spend much time taking care of our peanut plants that we are growing from our harvest last year. Wow. That's amazing. And look, yeah, another man cave is a man cave invasion here as well as on the morning show. Gilchrist is in as well. And St. Catherine is here as well. Hi all from Kate there. And yes, approximately 1/3 less than normal rainfall in Belfast, sitting tight in dams. If we get 2 very dry weeks, we will enter a hosepipe ban. My goodness. Brilliantly has rained for the last 10 days with the forecast saying at least 10 more. Yep. I saw that. Although some sunshine forecast in Portugal for the weekend. Rains most of the year, 2 weeks of hot weather, drought. That's the formula for the UK, apparently, from Andrew, who I think is glad to be back here. Have you ever wondered why Portuguese horses look full? A Portuguese tip for moisture retention: plant veggies close together and then you thin out as you eat. Good tip already. Lee, thanks for your appearance on Expats Portugal, sharing your business knowledge from last week on the Thursday there. So we enjoyed that. Would work for him anytime. He will have me. Made hard work enjoyable. What a glowing reference that is. And cold beers at the end of the day, I suspect, was part of that formula there. So let's bring on our special guest now, live from Devon in beautiful southwest of England. Helen, how are you?
Oh, yeah, I'm good. Yes. How are you?
Very well. We're delighted to have you here. So thank you very much. You're a friend of our friend Mansell, right? So do you know about Mansell's project? Just is that down the road from you?
Yeah, well, it's in Plymouth, which is where I live. So Mansell runs the Kintsugi project.
Oh, yeah,
which is working with people with so it's like a disability-friendly farm. So it's completely accessible and runs lots of projects there. Yeah, it's amazing work he does.
Superb. And Americans know about Plymouth, of course, because famous ships sailed from Plymouth, didn't they? In the flotilla.
They did, yeah. And then there's a place in America called Plymouth where they landed, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Or the gin, of course. So great to have you here. Could you tell us about yourself and your project?
My name's Helen, and I run Inner City Seeds, which is an inner city project, permaculture project based here in Plymouth, because it's quite urban. Where I work is very urban. And the idea is that we're kind of greening up either abandoned spaces or working with local community groups to green up their outdoor spaces that they have. So I've taken over fly-tipped areas in the past. That was kind of how I was beginning. And then I did a permaculture design course. And then after that, I kind of started working with different community groups and running different projects like beginner gardening packs and doing up local kind of historical sites that had been left, cleaning them up and planting around there as well.
Superb. What a fantastic idea that you've got there. I've got lots of questions, but I know Anna, John and Lee have as well. John, I think you've got a few. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I've got 3 of my own, so I'll start with the first one and then let everyone else have their go and then come back to myself. But anyway, so my first question is, how does the organisation benefit the people who use it? Fairly, yeah.
Yeah, really good question. Well, my organisation is based on people. So permaculture, you have like 3 main ethics, which is people care, earth care, and fair share. And you can kind of focus in more on one or the other, or all three, or just one. And I kind of focused in on people care, so around mental health. So we all have mental health, but I've also had mental health problems in the past, and I found that gardening was really beneficial to that. So I wanted to provide something for people to go and relax, meet other people, do a small amount of physical activity if they wanted to, and give them space to kind of connect with nature for their mental well-being. So it's very much about people care, my project, especially in urban areas where there's a real lack of connection with nature, where there's less greenery. It's really important to have those little spaces.
Sounds amazing. And I imagine that's come into its own as a principle in this last couple of years. And just looking forward in this time, the vision for planet Earth is a little bit challenged and turbulent, isn't it? So I'm sure that's a great comfort to people, what you've been doing. I suppose with social distancing, that has been a bit difficult as well. But the idea is superb, Helen. So lovely to hear that. Anna, do you want to ask anything, or Lee?
Yeah. Are you more rewilding based, or wildflowers in the city, or vegetables? Do you have an agenda, or is it just a broad spectrum depending on the site?
It really does depend on the site, but I like to kind of work with what's there, and it depends on the community that are using the space. So with one of the gardens that I've taken over at the moment, everything has to be very accessible, but also everyone has to be involved, and there's a lot of different groups that use that space, a lot of different people. So it's all about kind of planning how it can be accessible to everyone, so old, young, people who've got like mobility scooters, making sure there's things that people can do sitting down, and they can add seeds and that kind of thing, but also making it visually pleasing throughout the year. So I'm kind of looking at potager type design gardens at the moment, like a potager permaculture crossover. So there's lots of vegetables and flowers together in both of those kind of garden designs. I'm working also with what's already in the space, so having the trees, there's already trees there, so working on perhaps the idea of very small, like forest type garden things, or lots of complementary plants and that kind of thing.
Yeah, perfect.
Is that so? That's what potager means, is it? I've never really understood that.
It's a French style of gardening, so I think the English found it kind of unusual because it was vegetables with flowers. I think that's kind of, but it's in lots of different.
I think the English version would be the old cottage garden, the pre-war cottage garden, where you were growing. Then at the time would be cut flowers next to your veg because you had limited space. So you think back to the old English cottage gardens. The French steal all our good ideas. Give them a fancy name and claim them for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. They are beautiful gardens if you look them up. It's some really nice designs and styles.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Helen. Anna.
Yes, I hear that you got involved in a permaculture design course. What was that like for you, and has it helped to develop any of your gardening knowledge and skills as a result?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think it's really useful to do a permaculture course, depending on what sort of gardening you're interested in. It's very it's socially aware permaculture. So when with my teachers and what I got taught, I did get taught about like environmental issues and how kind of you're kind of taught as though the whole world is a garden and you're tending to a small patch of it, and how can you look to nature to influence your designing and your knowledge. But as someone who was a beginner gardener, I found it really useful. Gave me a lot of really great tips and a great footing to start off on. Yeah, I highly recommend permaculture course.
That's superb. And I get the feeling, thanks, Hannah, I get the feeling that if you're more interested in like philosophy or ethics of gardening or politics for that matter, you could be part of gardening by talking and focusing on that part of it and as your contribution to the bigger community, rather than feeling the only way to garden is to actually grow things.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, actually. I've not really thought about it like that, but yeah, you can easily have a discussion about gardening with someone philosophically. I was talking to an artist the other day about gardening, and they were really getting into the whole kind of things, working with each other and working with different materials, and yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could do that as people as well, wouldn't it? There's a thing.
Yeah.
So Marty's in from Alaska. Let's see who else is in before we go to your next question, John. And we have wonder why it's called green fingers. Whenever I garden, my fingers are brown from dirt. I think we do know, Andy, but nice one. That's a kind of John joke, that, isn't it? But out to the Green Finger crew from Pippa in Botswana. That's amazing to hear from you, Pippa, as well. A tip from Eric in Mexico. Last year, after harvesting our maize, we left the complete plants in the ground after taking the cobs out. Then I cut the plants up with my strimmer into lots of small pieces for easy composting. Thanks for that, Eric, as well. Sounds like Lee's in agreement with that one. Marty in Alaska, what grows there, mate? Benoit from Alaska, sorry to tune in late. I'll watch the full show on replay. Excited to hear about smart water usage, which we'll come to. I'm sure that's an area of expertise for you, Helen, with what you have to do in the community gardens. When strimming, we use a mulching blade or a multi-tiered strim feed to produce mulch. That's a nice addition to Eric's comment there. And any suggestions for soil conditioning? I'll come back to that as well. I've used stable manure, as in like stable manure, as in from a horse's stable, or a manure that is stable and not unstable. But anyway, before I heard chicken poo was excellent. Andy, really going into it there. I'm sure you'll have something to say about that as well, both of you experts here. Mulch also helps with water retention. So, yeah, another great benefit there. Thank you for that, Louise. Andrew. Yes, very true on the brown and green fingered thing. That works wonders. The strimming technique there, perfect for having mulch for composting and retain more water. Lower the temperatures in the soil, etc. Yes, that's a good point, isn't it? I forget what the terminology is, says Andrew. Poo is good enough, Andrew. Have you been to Kew Gardens? Asked Peter. It is great visiting really innovative gardens. It is beautiful there, isn't it? Helen and Lee, do you know Kew?
Yes, I do. I've been there several times. I love the place. Yeah.
And I think they've changed over the years, haven't they? I think to become less stuffy and like a gardening museum into something of great practical relevance.
Very much. Yeah, they put a lot of effort. Starting in the early 90s, they started to retrain their own staff and redo the layouts so they were more environmentally aware, and they were more educational based and more guest friendly. But tried to retain the original garden status. So yeah, they've done a really good job there. Love the place.
Yeah. I'm sure people have so many places they want to visit. I mean, with your place, Helen, do you welcome people who want to come and visit and learn how it's done? Because that seems to be a really important educational thing.
Yeah. I always welcome anyone to come visit if they want to, and just have a look around, see if they can pick some stuff up. And I've also been asked to go to kind of different places and work with younger people and teach them a few things like how to make bug hotels. And
lovely. And is that a difficult thing to manage? Because that must be quite infuriating to gardeners and practical earth people who just want to be in the garden. They have a great idea, because Lee, I know, was involved at Headton Bridge. And there comes a point, doesn't there, where people, the Women's Institute invite you over to do a talk, and then someone else invites you, the school invites you. And really you want to be spending time in the garden, but you're getting all these invitations. Is that quite a difficult thing to manage?
No, I love it. I think it's great.
Good. You're happy to be a missionary. And you the same, Lee?
I never turn down the opportunity to go and try and get people involved in projects, because that's where the money is. Yes. Especially with stuff like the Women's Institute and the Friends of groups. Back in the UK, if you want to raise money, you need to be aware. People need to be aware of you. And I met some great ladies at Women's Institute evenings, and they were all ex-professional secretaries, ex-business women, and you get them behind you and the money flows. It's what made Tomden Project worth doing, because they knew who to write to, and they had the time, because they were retired, to put some effort into it. So stuff
That's
like that
brilliant.
is invaluable. Yeah.
And you get to taste the cake and decide who's baked the best cake that night, don't you?
I used to get cakes made for me to take home, and yeah,
Look at that. I thought
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So there you
Tea
go,
and
Helen.
biscuits. I turn up anywhere for tea and biscuits.
Nice.
Brilliant. Okay, before we go to water retention, which sounds like an entirely different topic altogether, but conservation, let's call it, rather than retention. Chicken poop is great, but needs to be rested. Okay, rest your poop, Andrew, for a couple of months before using directly on veg or flower beds, as the chicken poop can scorch young plants. You don't want that. Any tips on how to recycle broom? Okay, not to make a recycled broom. Luke's recent attempts at making a material out of it ended up with harder but fishy smelling sticks with broom. That's odd. Do you want to add anything to that at this stage, Helen or Lee?
I think the fishy smell has come from soaking it in water.
Oh, really? Okay.
The traditional way of using broom as a material, the same with willow. When it's cut and harvested, you soak it for a long period, and it keeps its flexibility, so it doesn't become dry and brittle straight away. Okay. And if you leave it in the water too long, or you don't add salt into the water, it can go a bit pongy. Yeah,
I see. And he thought it might have been a bacalhau going off on the other side of the site. Water early in the morning or late in the evening if still hot. Water deeply, less frequently, so the roots go deep. With small daily watering, it makes shallow roots and less drought tolerant. Thank you, Pippa. I'm sure you're talking from experience in Africa there. Plant nitrogen ground cover like drought-tolerant legumes and then chop and drop. Okay, very good. We use a mix of our chicken poop, pine shavings and vegetable scraps for our compost. Lay it over the garden for a few months prior to first planting. Then no dye, natural wood chips on top. Retains the water. Yes, the Mrs. M loves that wood chip method. Pips, indeed, we water our gardens deeply twice a week, and only some veggies, etc., get more water if and when needed, all to promote the roots to grow deep into the ground. Good techniques being talked about. Thank you. Really great information coming in tonight. Colorado, where Base Orbit and Swara have their garden, is extremely wet, that probably, isn't it? It's extremely something or other, yet we have incredibly low water usage for our garden. So extremely hot, I'm going to go with there, and let us know if that's correct.
Colorado, it's a desert.
Of course, it's a desert. So, John, I think you've got more questions for Helen.
I don't have questions for Anna, actually, because Anna is one of
I said Helen.
people that's doing questions, you silly
Helen.
sausage.
Go on, mate.
I have questions for Helen.
Yes.
Given the time, I might do them both now.
Go on.
Just make it a bit. So the first one, they're two quite different questions, but the first one is, have you had any environmental challenges and how do you deal with them?
Okay, environmental challenges. Well, I guess one of the things is that it's getting a lot warmer now, with the kind of the rise in temperature, the ozone layer, and that kind of thing. So like we were talking about water retention. Are we saying retention?
Conservation.
Conservation. There's ways that I was taught in permaculture, which I'm sure exists across, organic farming as well, like to try and retain the water on the land for as long as possible. So mulching is really popular, as was just mentioned then. So covering your crops with very small chopped up bits of wood. So I actually brought a wood chipper, a little wood chipper that I could take around to different community projects and chip up all their wood and throw it on the beds. But yeah, that's one of the problems, is that with community groups, all these patches that are in the middle of nowhere and no one lives near it, it gets watered a lot less. So I guess there's been loads of different ways that we've looked at it. So if we don't have much ground cover on the soil yet with a fly tipped area, it's like all bare. Obviously, we try and put plants in there as quickly as possible, so that they're covering the ground and retaining the water. I've had a nice neighbour offer to water it when he saw that I was struggling with lots of milk bottles with little holes in the top coming down every evening. And in the newest space that we're working on, it's very much a transitional space, so there's not one person in there all the time.
Right.
So we're trying to collect lots of plastic bottles at the moment, so we can kind of create a drip system, which will feed lots of hanging plants on these kind of in these possible spaces they have. And also water butts are brilliant.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so I would highly recommend having a water butt in every garden.
Yeah.
So you have some water that you can use if you run out.
Okay, cool, excellent.
Yeah, really.
And my second question, or third and last question, because I already asked a question earlier, and then the other one was the second one, but I'm really socially awkward this evening. Anyway, how do you make your site or sites accessible to disabled gardeners? Especially because you were talking about mental health earlier, so because especially like actually kind of disability and mental health are really quite interconnected anyway. So I was just wondering how you make the sites accessible as possible to disabled gardeners.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in any garden that I work with, I always try and make sure that we're mindful of things like wheelchairs, like the size of wheelchairs. So there's always a large path, which has meant lots of vertical growing. So instead of just taking pots across the whole floor or maybe planting into the floor, we use a lot of the vertical space. So there's still a lot of space that you can use vertically, but that also gives people who might be in a wheelchair or possibly have difficulty walking space to be part of that garden, because like you said, it's really, really important to have access for people with disabilities. Just like parks, all parks should have a disability friendly swing, or access to people, because you don't want people to feel ostracized from that space, whoever they are. So it needs to be just at a basic level accessible to everyone, as far as I'm concerned. And also, I try and put like a little potting station in places where that I work. So there's always a table and a chair that people who can't bend down to the ground, because that's quite a common issue, especially with older people. They don't want to be bending down all the time. They can sit at a table and use that as a potting station, or there'd be a tool. Especially, you can get tools as well, so tools that extend, so that you don't have to bend over as much, and they have easier grips, so people with hand problems can use them as well. Those are some of my tips.
Fantastic. Just having a look at your lovely website, innercityseeds.com, if you want to find out more about what Helen's doing. Thank you, John. Thank you for great answers there, Helen. And Anna has a stack of questions. Helen, are you happy to stay with us and be part of the Q&A panel now, from your perspective?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Fantastic. Okay,
Good
Anna,
luck.
go ahead. Anna, do you want to ask your stack of questions?
Yeah, I'm just trying to work out sort of whether to sort of I feel I've got so many. I'm just trying to work out whether to put one to or keep going with onto our guest. But I think I probably could do a 2-in-1 here. This one was from one of the group members, but they were wondering if there's ways to use ash from a pellet stove in a permaculture garden.
Yes. There definitely is.
By the way.
Yeah, a lot of gardeners use ash in the garden. You can add it to your compost. You can also add it into the garden because it's high in potassium, so it will lower the acidity. So you need a certain pH in your soil, but depending on the plant. So you don't want to add it to soil around plants that like acidity, like blueberries. And I think rosemary might be a more acidic liking plant, but quite good to put in your compost, as far as I know, just to kind of mix up the pH, but dry. Make sure it's dry, so it's got all the potassium in it.
And cool as well, presumably.
And cool, yeah, don't start a fire, no.
I think Mr. McGrady, head gardener, wants to chip in with that particular question.
No, she nailed it. We've talked about this before. You can add it to your compost or directly onto your veg beds, but give it a little time to settle in before you plant on top of it.
Excellent stuff. Okay, go ahead, Anna, because I think we had a lovely list of questions from somebody who wants to grow with permacultural principles in mind. Can you remind us of that person's name?
Yes, it was just trying to work out how to pronounce the surname. It was Lisa.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, we've had all sorts of questions. I think we've got a picture question as well from Julie as well. We've got a few questions from Lisa, who's interested to know how to make like a compost toilet, and if there are different types, and if it's possible to build an eco home from materials off the land. This is sort of a Portugal question, and how to make a forest garden as well came up, and just organic irrigation ideas.
Yeah. Should I start with that one?
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, the compost toilet might not be your thing. Compost toilets become more and more popular, and if you're prepared to put the effort in, they can work really, really well. There's loads of YouTube videos about them that are far better educated than I am on the matter. But also, it leaves you with if you do it correctly, you can either do it into like a sump hole, where it virtually disappears and you leave it forever and ever, or you can put it into a composting toilet where eventually the urine and the other waste is separated and it becomes a usable black soil and fertilizer for really barren and bad ground. I know there's a couple of cracking YouTube videos explaining the science behind it, but it's definitely something I've seen and heard of in Portugal on many occasions, so you'll have no problem accessing the resources to do that.
We've got a bit squeamish about it in our time, haven't we? I mean, presumably people always used to put human manure on into the circle of life, as it were.
When I first started, we used to get black bags delivered every 6 months, and they were for the rose beds and for the geranium beds, and that was black soil. It was human waste that had been taken from the waste treatment centre, had been heated to make it safe, and then it was sold on or given away to the councils.
But they still
great for growing tomatoes in, because it comes with the seeds already in it. If you left it alone, start to seed.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And presumably the apprentices got to spread that out.
No, to be honest, there was no smell to it. There's no decay in it. It is pure black soil. It looks great. It's great stuff. Yeah.
Amazing. And is that where Pete's got a comment? Is that where shiitake mushrooms come from then? Only joking. Right, back to the moving on.
I missed that question then off Pete. I missed that. It went too quick.
Andy, hope you're ready for work. He's ordered 3,000 shiitake mushrooms. There's no need for that language, okay. Quite frankly. So drilling and plugging. It's all connected here, isn't it? In some strange way. But that's fantastic. And we had a kit. So go on, Lee.
I'm just going to go on to the second part, but I saw your mushrooms earlier this week on your post.
So delighted. Yeah, first time we managed to do it, and it was a kit from Lidl's, I think, or Aldi, because I think in German supermarkets they're more keen to sell seeds and stuff for the garden. And we bought this kit, little plastic pot, and it's got the spores in there. You mix it up with the compost, and I think within 3-4 weeks we had some mushrooms that we ate yesterday. It was just fantastic.
Can I ask you how much you paid for the kit?
Yeah, it was like $2.99.
And how many mushrooms did you get off it?
Oh, we've had. So it probably works out that the mushrooms are 75 pence each so far. I'm sense of it. I hope that's going to come down because we're not. I hope it's not finished yet, and I hope it's going to keep producing. in there. But is that what you're getting at? Your
Yeah,
price per?
yeah. Price per mushroom.
Yes, yeah, they were specialty mushrooms so far, but they might turn into something different over time. So yeah, Pete, that sounds fantastic. And Andy was talking about horse manure, that kind of stable manure, although it does stain the patio slabs when used in pots. Talking of patios, do have some lovely pictures from Belfast that I want to share with you, but there was a bit more in the questions from Lisa, I think wasn't there, Anna?
There was. The second bit is about using materials off your own ground to build houses or housing.
Yeah.
It really depends on the territory that you buy, the plot of land that you buy. There's some great access if you buy somewhere with a ruin on it or somewhere with an existing building that you could strip for. I've seen that done. Wood harvesting here is quite popular, but I wouldn't recommend to harvest the wood to use to build. I would harvest your wood to sell, or in exchange for already seasoned and milled wood. There are companies that do it here in Portugal, and timber houses are becoming more and more popular. I'm sure if you wanted to message me direct, I could give you a few numbers for that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, quite popular here at the moment.
Superb. Okay, anything else in there, Anna, that we need to be aware of from the questions incoming?
There was a question from Judy, which is a picture question, but I was going to say a question from Fiona, actually, is in for Helen, and I'll read it as it's worded here. I think we all know of the benefits of permaculture, but what are the most common problems found? And another sort of question in with this one as well. Apart from the usual observed for first full year, what are the likely issues faced once you have started it says planting to your design?
I think the thing is that you're always going to have a problem. Like, I think that's really normal. One of the things that I've noticed with people when planting seeds, for example, is that the seed can sometimes not germinate. And that could be the weather, it could be the conditions it's kept in, maybe it's not damp enough. But also sometimes seeds just don't germinate and no one really knows why. Just doesn't happen. And it's not something that should put people off. I always find people want to be a perfectionist at first and they really want everything to work and be perfect. But I think it's a lot better to come into gardening with like the attitude that things will definitely go wrong. And you creatively respond to challenges as they come up, and that's kind of how you actually learn how to do it. So I think definitely.
Is there any particular difficulties in growing vegetables in a permaculture environment? I think that's more what the question was.
More what the question is. I think.
I know what angle she's coming at.
Yeah. I think it's the same problems you would get in any garden, but you will have problems of pests, diseases, but with permaculture you're trying to kind of bring in those ecosystems that are kind of deter pests. Like you have a bug hotel to bring in ladybirds to eat green fly, so you don't get green fly everywhere. So you work in kind of that level, but you have the same problems as you would anywhere. So you might plant something that you need to move because it's actually too sunny and you thought that it'd be a good sunny spot, but that's what I would say.
Any particular vegetables that do well in your permaculture projects that you were surprised by?
I was really surprised this year by the winter vegetables that we grew. So we decided to get some, do you know Vital Seeds? No? Okay, so they're a seed producer, organic seed producer in England who are great. Highly recommend Vital Seeds. And the best thing about them is that they do little like themed packs. So this year we got a winter vegetable pack, and so I was really excited to see what would grow in the horrible winter conditions in England. And I was really surprised at how well everything did. We had pak choy, but a lot of Asian vegetables as well, like purple frills was an amazing crop to grow. There was nothing that was going to stop pak choy or purple frills thriving in the absolute bleakness of winter. And absolutely nothing, didn't even need to really compost it or anything. It just went for it, and rocket and those kind of things. I mean, there's so many vegetables that they don't really have a problem as far as I can see, as long as you are very good with composting.
I'm not sure.
Really.
I don't know how long you've been involved with the projects, but is there anything that you've found where the problems multiply with the years that go on? Is there any sort of build up of problems and you have to deal with? Is there anything you come across that's come with time?
Not that I've noticed, not really. What kind of problems do you come across?
Oh, people mainly, but
Mainly people. Yeah, same.
no, I was thinking of more sort of sustaining the soil. Or I know as a horticulturist, I would add feeds and manures and compost on a regular basis. Where maybe in your environment, where you more stand back and leave it alone, you don't tend to.
No, I think if you want vegetables, you do need to feed them. So you would still compost and compost regularly. You know, like maybe you'd compost, I don't know, twice a week, once every 2, really depending on how big you want the vegetables and that kind of thing. Go in there and pull out the weeds between the vegetables. Even though we love weeds, you know, you need to think about what needs space to grow and that kind of thing in the growing seasons and stuff like that. But yeah, you know, a lot of it, once you kind of leave it to its thing, it kind of looks after itself. You still need to put work in, I would say.
Yeah. I think John may be leaving soon, but before you go, John, I think you've got a great idea.
Yeah, I was thinking we could do a part 2 of this. I don't know about you, Anna, or if that's convenient or for everybody.
You mean with the water conservation side? Because the time has absolutely flown past tonight. It's been amazing. We've got Kalahari Desert in the house tonight. That's Pippa. I mean, I don't know how many times I've ever heard a gardening program where somebody says we're in the Kalahari Desert. If you have deep-rooted plants, amend the soil with plenty of organic matter, use raised beds, and we use 40% shade net. That's amazing, your situation over there with your sandy soil. But Mexico, Colorado, Belfast, Kalahari Desert, Botswana tonight, Surrey, I think, in UK.
Plymouth and Lisbon. We've covered everywhere.
It's been amazing tonight. Helen, thank you so much for being here. And we've basically run out of time. Will you come back and join us another time?
Yeah, I'd love to. I would love to talk more about water retention, irrigation. Yeah, definitely. That would be really cool.
Well, thank you so much. We're not chasing you away yet. I know John might have to leave, but we do have some lovely readers' picks and a video as well. So we'll go over time with that and any other questions we can deal with. So just quickly in Belfast then, look, this is from Deagle's back garden where there's not been enough rain yet. And I imagine he didn't think he'd ever hear himself saying that, not enough rain in Belfast. Some scented stocks and curly kale growing in there. Always lovely to get the pictures of people's gardens. Thank you so much for these, Deagle. And there's the rainfall, a rainfallometer or similar there. Things growing quite nicely, though, I've got to say, over there. And look, in central Portugal, we've got some lambs. Jason's new little lambs there. Have we got names for them yet? Because he was asking for names, I think, on Facebook, wasn't he, for those 3 lambs as well. Thank you so much, Jason, for that picture that's coming. Last few comments before we go to the video. The video it's not streaming brilliantly. I think I'll find a better way of showing it next week, but we'll definitely show it because that's coming from Base Orbit and Swara this evening. So smash the like button, says OLP. And Surrey in the house as well. When it comes to alongside Mexico, Colorado, and Portugal tonight. Quick question, what kind of compost can I repot a Morning Glory in now it's a bit older? It's definitely lost a lot of its vigor, says Jason. What would you say there, Helen or Lee?
You go first, Helen. Go.
I don't really know.
It's a weed,
what kind of soil it like. Morning Glory?
Yeah.
Can't think of it off the top of my head, honestly.
It's very, very, very. Is he making a smutty joke there? I think about his Morning Glory losing vigor. Honestly, okay. Well, let's move on there. I can't believe
I got it straight away.
Yeah. Okay.
I was like, I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, Helen. My bad. My bad there. On the human manure side, on the black gold or the whatever you would call it, the human manure, which I know a lot of people who convert to their composting their own waste absolutely become evangelists for it often, don't they? And Jason says, we rest our human manure for a full year before applying to ensure all pathogens have died off. So if you're thinking of getting into that, that's definitely something you've got to be aware of. Be really careful. Human manure, they grow barley for the breweries in the UK with right loads of the stuff. So that's interesting as well, isn't it? That's you're not, because normally you associate beer with urine rather than the number two substance, we should say, but both there when it comes to barley. Shall I navigate my way out of that now?
If you can.
If I can. Our biggest challenge will be to organically control a garden eating insects that seem to be developing through climate change. Interesting. So the temperature's going up, different pests are coming, right? And your earlier tip about ladybirds definitely helping there. What would you say about that? I mean, have you just got to adapt like nature does?
It's a bit of a problem.
Sorry. Go.
I think it's a bit of a problem for people who are growing mass crops for the general populace, because what's happening is that plants go into seed a little bit too early, and then suddenly the frost hits instead of waiting until after the frost to kind of go into bud fully. I haven't seen too much of that on the projects I'm growing on, but I have seen a lot of plants coming up earlier, and it does make me worry about their process, how they're going to kind of survive later when it gets a bit warmer.
I think with the climate changing so quickly, the natural environment's not got changed to evolve to develop the defences for it. So you've got to be thinking now of how you're going to adapt your garden for 5 years down the road when it's much drier. I was doing this 9 years ago when I worked in Oldham, planting different plants, knowing that by the time they mature, the climate would have already changed. So it's that prior preparation that we always talk about. You've got to be thinking what you're planting now is going to be in a drier spot in 5 years' time, and working towards it that way.
That's very sobering and very practical. Yeah. Nice one, Lee. And that's your own experience, is it? That rate of change is actually occurring now.
We were finding that we could use being up in Oldham. We get hit by frost, we get hit by snow a lot, and my first winters were shocking. And each winter got milder and milder and milder, and a little bit wetter as well. So we were finding we could get away with using different plants in our bedding schemes, and our bedding would last a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And just adapting to that and using different plants that would be more heat tolerant, like the cordyline. We could have never dreamed of using a cordyline when I first started. And by the time we finished, they were in every bloody bed, because we weren't getting the long periods of frost. We're getting frost, but not the long periods. So we're just coping better. So
Incredible. Yeah. Okay. So I think what I'll do is I'll roll this video, and we'll come back with the soundtrack next week, because it's not streaming brilliantly, but that can be playing alongside us here. And I know as well I've got some more questions for Helen here.
There was a lot
I seem to have frozen up having done that. But if you can see this, Helen, can you respond to this one here?
What's that? Where's that? Where's the question? Sorry.
Over a crash.
Oh no!
I'm not sure if we've had a crash, everybody. I think we've got the background stuck on the screen at the minute.
Ellen, there was a question popped up earlier about the position of bug hotels. Is it a problem?
Yeah. A positioning. Well, it's quite an interesting one, because the thing is that you want the inside of the bug hotel to be kind of a bit. Areas of it to be dry and damp, depending on what kind of bugs you want to attract.
Yes.
So it's good to have it in a sunny facing position, but with shade, like partial shade over the top of it. So you can have some bugs that really want dry wood. So that's sometimes why you see a little plastic bottle with the bamboo in it, or the bits of wood inside, so that it will stay drier for longer. And that kind of thing. And also, I think personally, it's quite a good idea to have it kind of near your vegetable patch. So if you want to, I think ladybirds like pine cones. So if you put lots and lots and lots of pine cones around in your bug hotel near your veg patch, then that will help bring the ladybirds.
And
different materials bring in different things. So
have you considered using bird boxes to encourage the blue tits, because they are phenomenal feeders of greenfly?
yes,
Some I've always done on my allotment to make sure there's 2 or 3 bird boxes, because 2 nests of blue tits and you have no greenfly problems for the year.
oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, I
something
really love little birds. I always worry that they might come in and take all the fruit. Like they might want to take all, if you have some fruit bushes.
Plant 10% extra bushes and feed the birds. Plant 10%
Yeah.
extra of everything and feed the birds.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah, I would like to do that. I wanted to have a go at making bird boxes actually this year.
Simple. Dead simple.
Yeah,
You can, on the RSPB website, and I'm not sure it's still there, it was last time I looked, they have a print-off format, so you can print off a sheet, you put it on top of the timber, and it gives you all the markings you need to cut the timber. So from one piece of board, it gives you the sections to cut, and it's all tacked together, dead simple.
Good.
But if just a warning to everybody, don't put them in direct sunlight, where in the heat of the day where the sun's direct on them, because you'll cook the chicks or the eggs.
Oh dear. Okay, we don't want that, do we? We don't want that. Sorry, I disappeared on you. I tried to run the videotape there.
You weren't missed.
I'm sure that's you managed perfectly well without me. Helen, thank you so much for being here this week. Looking forward to your company again. Check out Inner City Seeds, everybody, and Vital Seeds as well. That looks like a fantastic website that I'm going to show Mrs. M. Anna, great job tonight. Thank you very much. And, of course, Head Gardener McGrady. We look forward to gathering together another time. And I will try and roll the other video after this, but if it crashes the site again, we'll do it next week from Base Orbit Swara. Go on, Lee.
Can I just say, break a leg with your new show tonight?
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, 7:30. I need to get on a music show. And so you'll see us for a little while on YouTube and on Facebook, but we've got to go off there because we were going to be playing music on Mixcloud. So we'll be doing that for 7:30. Thank you, Lee. You'd be most welcome there because I think people are going to have 1 or 2 beers and tend to be being a little bit sort of open with their opinion.
How long's the show run for?
Well, 2 hours it's scheduled for, but you can get a few. Yeah, you can get a little bit in.
Second hour because I've got the Man Cave Business Forum first meeting tonight.
Check you out. What happened to you, man? Okay, all right.
Changing times. Changing to my environment.
Helen, thank you so much. Been lovely to talk to you tonight. Really appreciate it. Thanks to all the community for your lovely contributions and comments tonight. We'll see you again next week at 6:15. Ciao, ciao.
Of my own documentary on just growing our own food and what would it take to grow enough food in our backyard that we could eat on it for a year.